today when we hear the word unsafe, we think it means physically.
Right.
And we think it means materially.
Yeah.
But it's so interesting that those things can be taken care of and you still feel an internal unease.
Yeah. Yes. A dis-ease. It was an emotion. I wasn't emotionally safe. I knew that. That's what I knew somewhere deep down. And I didn't have a way to confirm it. And I didn't even have a way to ask about it. It just was this feeling. And I didn't even know if I should trust the feeling, right? Because everyone was saying, it's all good. Everything's fine.
Welcome to another empowering episode of Becoming with Angelina Watkins, and I'm your host, Angelina, your queen of becoming, here to guide you on a journey of inspiration, resilience, and success. Today's journey is going to be just a little bit different because normally I take you on a journey of iconic women where I can show you where they came from, their trials and tribulations, and things that they've had to overcome. And the things that they did despite what happened to them or their bad experiences in order to become successful. But what do you do when you have a seemingly picture perfect life and the devastating blow comes after the success and after you've become an adult? How do you deal with the devastation then? How do you deal with who you are or who you thought you were and that was ripped right underneath you? That's what we're going to talk about today, because we're going to talk about Kerry Washington, who seemingly lived a very fulfilling, perfect life and faced with a devastating blow about her identity at the age of 41 of finding out that her father is not really her father. And so what do you do with that? How do you deal with that? And how do you heal from that? So before we get into that, She Means Business is right around the corner. It starts October 19th. 4 weekly sessions every Thursday for 4 weeks. I'm helping our female startup entrepreneurs and struggling business owners or small business owners implement a financial management system that addresses all the legal considerations, tax strategies, money management, and automations they need in order to run their business successfully. So make sure you sign up for that. There's a link in the description below. And then also make sure that you hit that subscribe button, subscribe to the channel and that notification bell so you don't miss another episode of Becoming with Angelina Watkins. Now, let's kind of get into the story of Kerry Washington. Kerry, she was born and raised in Bronx, New York. Her mother was a professor, an education consultant, and her father was a real estate broker. And as she says, she had a very good childhood. Her parents were very loving, very nurturing, and supportive. Her mom, being the educator that she was and knowing her own limits, would take her to places and put her in activities where she could be expressive and energetic and emotional to make sure she got what she needed growing up. And in an interview with Jay Shetty, Kerry talked about how she would have these panic attacks at the age of 7 and not really knowing what to do and how to even express or describe what she was feeling.
No, I didn't know. I didn't have the language when I was 7 that it was a panic attack. It was later in life, in my early 20s, when I started having panic attacks again, that I recognized that this was something that's been with me for a long time, on and off through the years. And I realized I had been having them since I was that little kid. And it felt like dread pulsing through my body. Like, I know I described it as like this whirling, like a spinning, like a rhythm I couldn't control, like a rising heat, like a clenching in my throat, a fear that felt like it was small enough to be in every little cell, but big enough to drown in, you know? And I just, like, as I say that to you, I have so much love for that little girl lying in that bed without the language to describe it as I'm describing it to you, but still having to hold space for the experience of it.
Anxiety and panic attacks are similar, but the cause is different. But anxiety can lead to having a panic attack. And so as the interview continued, I could clearly see from her commentary that anxiety is prevalent and still sometimes creeps up as an adult. When she was talking about not liking the business side of acting, but it would be the healing, the yoga, affirmations, and self-discovery that she puts effort into as she's, in her adult years, that allows her to push through the anxiety and the feelings of overwhelm with the business side of acting. And so the business side, it's overwhelming, too much vulnerability and exposure to rejection, criticism, being let down, having to compete. And she liked acting, preparing and the filming, but not so much all of the stuff before and after. And it was overwhelming to her. Whereas acting is not. And some of you might be like that. You get joy out of the craft and not having to deal with the other stuff. And so I know I'm like that. I just want to teach. I get overwhelming satisfaction when I can pour into others positively and impact their life. And all that behind the scenes stuff, that has to be done. I could do without, but I have to do it. And she has to do it, or she still has to do it. And so we don't want to talk about anxiety in the Black community. We ignore it. And we're told to put our big girl panties on, or suck it up, buttercup, or get it together. But it's real. The feelings of overwhelm and fear that overtakes your body, and your heart is pounding, and there's this pain in your throat, and you think you're losing control of yourself. And you're fighting so hard not to let the feelings overtake you, and you almost have an out-of-body experience of you fighting to stay in your body and in control. And there may not be a present danger because it's more emotional. Panic attacks aren't really about physical safety, but for me it's about emotional safety. And as a child, she was loved, provided for materially, she wanted, appreciated, encouraged, yet she didn't feel emotionally safe. So how does one have a picture perfect parents and still have emotional and identity issues? Now we know that no one's perfect, but her parents seem to be doing everything right. She described her childhood as exciting, adventurous, and abundant, yet she unconsciously knew something wasn't right.
At 7, where were those negative or bad thoughts coming from? Like, where was that panic coming from? What was the source of it?
Yeah, I think a lot of it was, I talk about hearing my parents arguing in the other room, but in general, there was this sense of, it's a big word, and I'm going to say it and then contextualize it. I think I felt unsafe. I was safe in a lot of ways. I was very loved. We were, I was provided for materially. I was wanted. I was appreciated. I was encouraged. But I also knew, as I talk about in the memoir, that there was information that was being kept from me. I didn't know it consciously, but unconsciously, I felt like I wasn't being given the full truth. And that created in me this, like a sense of distrust and of longing for wholeness. Like something felt incomplete and unwhole. It's probably not the right way to say it. But so I think the panic was me trying to navigate the fear of like, what don't I know? I don't even know what I don't know. I just know I don't have everything I need to feel safe.
Today, when we hear the word unsafe, we think it means physically.
Right.
And we think it means materially.
Yeah.
But it's so interesting that those things can be taken care of and you still feel an internal unease.
Yeah. Yes. A dis-ease. It was an emotion. I wasn't emotionally safe. I knew that. That's what I knew somewhere deep down. And I didn't have a way to confirm it. And I didn't even have a way to ask about it. It just was this feeling. And I didn't even know if I should trust the feeling, right? Because everyone was saying, it's all good. Everything's fine. So I think that maybe a lot of the panic was that I was from early on being asked to disconnect from my own sense of knowing.
Kerry will find healing in acting. In real life, you are pretending that everything is okay when inside it isn't. Real life, you can't express fear, but in acting, you can be these characters that can hide, and you can hide behind and secretly reveal yourself through the characters. Acting gave her more emotional vocabulary to be able to vocalize feelings and more willingness to feel her feelings and express them. But from a little girl, she had an innate skill of resilience, tenacity, and bravery, which came from the environment she was in. As she stated, she came from a line of really brave women who were resilient and had a lot of strength. But Carrie adopted a mental habit developed as a 7-year-old little girl, having panic attacks to replace the negative with positive thoughts. When she was having the attacks, she would force herself to have what she called good thoughts. As a little girl, all she knew was that feelings that they were really bad, and she wanted to feel good, so she turned to music and would think about her favorite things that made her happy and brought her joy and a sense of peace to maybe feel all right, and shut down the panic. And the ability to rationalize good and bad, let the positive be more prevalent. I think that helped her in her adulthood to gracefully go through finding out her father was not her father, and to accept that for 41 years when she didn't quite understand who she was, and she was struggling to figure out the missing pieces, and she finally understands. But it is being able to find the good and to understand that there are two truths that allows her to be resilient. It doesn't mean it didn't hurt. It doesn't mean she doesn't need healing. No matter how mentally and emotional healthy you are, there's still a process of healing when your world is rocked or shredded in some way. But how long you remain stuck in the pain is determined by your ability to rationalize reality and how mature your skill of resilience is.
Because it was not the story I had been told and not the story we had been living, but also it made so much sense to me because there had been this sense of like, I felt like I didn't know myself, and I felt a disconnect with my parents, and I felt a disconnect with myself. And I never knew what to ascribe that to. I never knew why. And suddenly it was like the pieces all fell into place. It was like there had been this beautiful puzzle on the wall of our home that had this one wrong piece in it, but it was close enough that everybody just pretended that the painting was perfect. You know, everybody was like, it's gorgeous, it's beautiful. If you got close enough, you could see that there was a missing puzzle piece. But since we all ignored it, we all kind of forgot about it. And when my parents told me, it was like somebody finally took that wrong puzzle piece that had been like jammed into place and pulled it out. And we got to all be honest about like that piece was wrong. And we don't even know what the missing piece is because I don't know who the donor is. But at least now the painting is honest. I mean, my dad, if he had his druthers, would have never told me, which is in many ways like infuriating, but also so beautiful because to my dad, I am his and he is mine. And there's no point in acknowledging any other truth. I mean, even to today, he acknowledges it. He's had to come to terms with it, but it doesn't matter. And in a really beautiful way, like I am his and he is mine. He is my dad. He will always be my dad.
Well, you have the grace to say, I understand. Like he is me and I am his. Like that beautiful statement that you just repeated twice there. What has allowed you, how have you developed that ability to let two truths coexist?
I don't know where it comes from.
It comes throughout the book. I see it throughout the book.
That's so interesting. I don't know where it was born. I mean, I do know, I think maybe one of the first places that I started to think about it consciously, again, weirdly, was in my yoga practice, right? Because you learn in yoga practice that you must have this combination of being steady and strong, but also flexible and yielding.
How emotionally healthy are you? Some of you might be like Kerry and I, where we've been able to rationalize and find the good in a situation since we were little girls. But for those of you who did not have that innate quality, it doesn't mean you can't learn it. You can learn it. You can learn to heal yourself. So many sit around waiting for someone or God to heal them when they can heal themselves by learning how to process the pain, how to verbalize how you are feeling and express how you feel in more positive ways, how to train your brain to accept reality and find the lesson, the silver lining or the victory in it all. Everything we experience doesn't always feel good, but Psalms 119 and 71, David said, "It was good for me that I have been afflicted, that I may learn your statutes." Everything is not meant to destroy us, but build us up and get us ready to handle the next level of our lives. Are you ready? If you're not ready, then it's time to get ready. Now, if that's you and you know you need healing, from your past, and to be built up and build resilience and confidence and clarity on who you are in your life. You want to be the boss of your own life. Then I invite you to join the relaunch of Becoming P3, which is 3Ps are purpose, prosperity, and power. Right now, I'm taking a small number of people to help you work through the process of healing. And there's a cost. It's a small cost, and I think it's very reasonable, but it is a cost. And if you're interested in getting more information, text HEALING to 513-623-6359. Now, where you are is not where you have to be. Your past does not define you. You define you. So heal, transform, and pursue.